Thank you. Yeah. Just a couple things of order for everybody to understand that if we have to vacate this room for any reason, go out either of these doors on this side. Don't go out this door here because it goes back into the council offices. You'll get trapped back in there. So it's the best to just go out those doors. So with that, the call for order, we'll call for the roll call.
Duncan Black,
Here.
Marissa Colucci,
Here.
Tracy Conheiser-Rui,
Here.
Jonathan O'Rourke is absent, Pete Tulty.
Yes, here.
Okay, at this point, I'd like to call for the approval of the minutes from the August 28th, 2025 meeting. If I could get a motion and a second.
I'll second it. That was really.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carried. Okay, we're here really tonight for design review application for the Legacy Village Senior Housing Project located at 3900 to 3904 Maple Road. The petitioner is Southern Tier Environments of Living Incorporated. With that, I'll turn it over to your presentation tonight of your project, if you would, please.
Thank you. Rob Savarino. I'm the president of RAS Development Company. I'm the developer for the project, so I'm speaking on behalf of my client, Southern Tier Environments for Living. I noticed on the title, it said two-story commercial building addition. It's actually a four-story residential building. Just want to make that known.
Whoops.
Great, appreciate it. Thank you.
At least that's what the picture looks like.
Yeah, that's right.
Application.
We've added 2 more floors. Yes. If you want to move forward, we can. I have another presentation behind this. I can sort of discuss what's on the DAB slides. That is the site plan. I'll show you where the site actually sits. It is a 4-story building, approximately 82,000 feet, central loaded corridor, parapet, and a flat roof. You can see the site sits behind, adjacent to the Premier Wines, Premier Gourmet commercial building. The seller of the property is Premier, so they are working with us to make certain we get our set of approvals to do this project. It is approximately 2.2 acres. It's already improved with some stormwater management, asphalt, curbing, and the like. You can see the zoning around the site. It is CTR 5, which is in that green shading. What we're planning here, this affordable senior housing project, can be done as of right. Again, the site, 2.2 acres. It will have to be subdivided out of the approximately 4-acre site. It will have frontage on Meyer Road. And we are aligning the driveway to the curb cut across the street to Boulevard Towers. Landscape plan, it is fully detailed out in our plans in terms of the planting schedule, but we are making a concerted effort to really enhance the landscaping around the new structure. I think at this point in time, because a lot of your purpose tonight is to ask questions on either site, the surrounding area, or architecture, I'm not opposed to having us move to that portion of the presentation where you ask questions. I did prepare a rather lengthy presentation going through every question you asked us in the application. Gary thought that that might take 2.5 days to go through. So I'll take any direction that the board provides us. We could turn this into an interactive conversation if you like. It's up to you.
Well, I think from my standpoint, we've had a lot of review, and we've gotten the good information from the planning department, from the town architect and others. And I think the best would be if you presented your project and with how you're resolving or not, why you're not resolving the issues that they pointed out. I mean, overall, you're in a correct zoning.
Right.
And that, so yes, we can just do the aesthetics part of it with the design questions, but I think it would be better to have your response to all these questions, or otherwise we're going to be asking a lot of the same things.
Okay. Very well. We do. Gary, do you have any?
I believe the comments that Duncan's referring to would be the letter that Ann sent a couple weeks before the meeting.
We can talk to that. With us tonight, Patrick Sheedy Jr., Carmina Wood, Design. Pat can answer any site-related questions. Stephanie Hunt from Silvestri Architects is here as well for any building-related questions. Do we want to go through that letter now and go through the bullet points that were brought about? We can answer them. Okay. We don't have a copy of that letter to put on the screen, do we? We could just go by bullet point by bullet point.
Have it. If you have them, you should have it.
Right.
You can react to it.
No. Yes, there's the letter that you received from Ann. You have a copy?
Well, this is the attachment that was with that letter. I only have the one copy, but sure. It just has a cover letter that went with it,
So,
saying please see attached.
Yeah, I only had one letter.
It was sent to
Yeah.
probably Robert.
You get the letter that looks.
Yes. You can use that. Why don't you use that? Yeah. Yes, the blurb is same as the letter. Here's your letter.
Thought we did.
A bunch of things.
Got it.
Yeah, it's really,
And so that was attached to this, is that? Yeah.
This is probably a summary.
the thing. Yes.
You know what I'm hoping didn't happen? That this was mailed to Southern Tier.
You could too.
I've just been going through it looking for it. That's, which, I'm not sure what it is.
Let me find it. Hang on.
Does it say Jared Joe at the top
This
of it?
one?
Got it.
It's like the town architect.
Right. Okay.
Got it.
That's referred to as the letter.
Please have a copy.
Let's go through building design guidelines. Okay. So
Oh,
Stephanie, I would
okay.
recommend you just read off E1A. It's that and talk about it.
They don't have any comments.
Letter of problem. Cover letter. Correct. These are the staff comments.
You really got us all
And then we put it together. Yeah,
Okay.
So when we,
yes. So Duncan's asking.
Of course, I shouldn't,
So you only
I guess
have
I should have said the staff analysis.
where the comments, where the,
They're right here. Some of them have comments, some of
I
them.
didn't know if they received this or not. I mean,
Yeah.
some.
that's what I thought. Okay, okay.
I think they did
Yeah, okay.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone, but they should have.
And if they send it to Sean,
It's,
Yeah.
yeah, it's design, so it's facade, so we should probably. If you want, I can read.
I mean, the first.
They're looking at the same, yeah.
Yeah.
So.
First three are all- The comment on page 12 for stairway exit doors, we can make those exterior doors glass, no problem. The door. Overall scale of the entrance appears to be the same size as the nearby windows.
Go to B.
What are we doing?
Stephanie, can you refer to the guideline number? And that we, the board could
Guideline
follow along.
number.
It's right here.
Okay, the first one I mentioned was B-2A. Stairway doors.
Next.
Currently, we're just showing aluminum storefront door. We can make it appear taller just by adding a transom. We're showing a canopy over that door, but also some windows. We can delete the ones over the windows so the entrance is more distinguished. Some of these just say noted. Sorry, I'm just reading through. E3, the window comments all just say okay. Guideline B-4A. Do you want me to keep going?
Go ahead.
Did you want to? B4A. There was a comment for this section. Applicant should elaborate on how this building complements the surrounding context, neighborhood in which it is located, not how it architecturally complements itself. We're using very durable materials. Right now, we're showing a very clean, very light colored appearance with a variety of materials, cultured stone, lap siding, and shake, along with, I believe we're doing flat panel siding with architectural trim boards. So it's a very clean, modern building. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think it's this.
I think the comment sort of relates to like we're looking for like some cohesion in the neighborhood. So I think the question sort of lends itself to like, does this architecturally speak to the towers that are across the street? Does it speak to like some of the other buildings that are there? I think you addressed the materials in other parts of the, does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, the tower, I mean, how tall is the tower? Is it four stories as well? I mean, there's a smaller residential area next to it, and we're We pulled the building back from that direction.
Boulevard Towers is all brick. Boulevard Towers across my road. Meyer Point Senior Housing is another project, 4-story wood frame flat roof project. I developed that project. Silvestri designed it. It's this building that we're proposing has more cultured stone on it and less vinyl siding. But in terms of scale, it sits the right way, rectangular shaped. I think it's L-shaped.
The next item with a comment, B-4C, regarding cornices. Cornices should be used to differentiate and enhance the vertical composition of the facade. Cornice caps appear to accent the vertical components of the facade. Is it possible to consider different scales or styles for large vertical masses versus medium-small masses on the facade? I'm not sure if I understand that comment.
It appeared that the intent of the design was to show different masses to kind of break up the length of it, which I think you guys did do a good job of it, but the cornices are so uniform across the board that then I get it kind of pulls everything back together. So I think the question really, if the board cares to consider this, is should there, the guidelines generally call for a base, middle, and cap. The cap piece is very uniform across all of this. It kind of blends together from one mass to another.
So you want like a larger cap on the?
Well, I guess it's really just a question for the board, like, should this be broken up more, or is the uniformity of that cap and that cornice appropriate?
I think the uniformity is from the rendering. In the rendering, you'll often put something as a placeholder for something more detailed later on. There's 3 different types of cornices that you have here. One that's at the lowest level, which is the longest running. And then there's a higher and a intermediate one. So I think what's being brought up here is that there's no differentiation, there's no detailing. I would assume it's some type of FIPON or ephes up there, but I don't know what the materials are. So we're looking for more information about what these cornices are, what they're doing, rather than just simply being an overhang in the rendering.
Yeah, I believe it's trim boards. We do have sections. I don't think I brought them.
Yes. Yeah. In section, I think what you got going on here is that.
Yeah.
It's kind of actually a little further down. But there's no differentiation between this, this, small, medium, large. So I believe that that's.
I think to the the town architect's comment, I think you did a good job of breaking up the facade because it is a very long and rectangular building, but then it almost all becomes just long and rectangular again because all of those cornices at the top are
Like
pretty much almost the same height and they're the same profile. So for the ones that are just slightly taller, does that cornice maybe get a little bit deeper? Does it have a little bit of a different detail? To help kind of keep, because I like what you guys are doing where you're sort of pushing and pulling the facade like on the elevation. I think that's nice, but it does almost kind of blend back together just with that detail remaining so simple and uniform. Yeah.
Yeah, we can look into that.
I think that's a fair way to say it. It seems like it's very repetitive, even though
Yeah.
you're trying to differentiate the blocks. Like
Yeah.
the shadow line depth is the same on all of them. So you're trying to have these masses that appear different and broken up, but yet on the top, when we see the shadow line, it's consistent again across all of them. So is the intent to tie it all back together, or is it to create distinct separate masses? And if the intent is distinct separate masses to break up that facade, should the cornices on the top of each mass type differ from one to the next?
Breaking up the uniformity of the cornices.
Yeah, we can look into that. Yeah.
Uniformity by design.
I think some kind of a different treatment, and that may help with the, the previous comment about the main entrance being kind of hidden. So you may be able to emphasize the entrance as well by the entire block and how you treat the cornice too. So I think you can maybe solve two of the comments by looking at that cornice. Mhm.
The next item with a comment is B4F. It just says current rendering and elevations do not show proposed lighting. We will have lighting, we just haven't really discussed it. Like architectural, like building lights. Yes.
When the DAB is done with their recommendations and you go to revise your site plan application, those elevations should show the lighting because we have to look at the photometric plan and make sure it meets code. So we need to add the lights. So both site lighting, photometrics, should be the same, or should be together, shown.
Is there a certain amount of lighting you're looking for, or?
Well, at the back side, the north side of the building is backed up to a residential area, so you don't want to have light streaming in. You know, keep residential. On the other, at the same time, you're also lighting a parking lot, and on the south side and other sides, you're coming into a parking lot and addressing a more commercial side. So it should be appropriate for what's going on around it and not and be observant of light spillage. Also, being that you've gone through the trouble to put all this relief into the elevation, lighting will make that even look more spectacular. Yes. Yeah, on the stone, but also on the verticals going up. And the same shadows the sun creates, not the same, but the opposite often happens with lights.
Mm-hmm.
Highlight. So yeah, we'll have to address that.
Yep. We
Exactly.
intended to put them in, they're just not located.
One thing that you kind of talked about earlier, but we didn't actually address it, was the canopies. Looking at the rendering, there's a number of canopies that are shown, which aren't the same locations that are shown on the building elevation. There's substantially more shown on the rendering than there are on the elevation. And when you're beginning to talk about the transoms, the transoms interfering with the canopies are the locations where there are canopies above the doors already. In the windows where you weren't putting transoms, there are no canopies shown on the elevation. So here are the long, may I?
Yep.
These here are not on the elevations. These ones are. So I think you were talking about putting the transoms here where the canopies are. So the question is, one, where are the canopies actually intended? And then to the point of the transoms, how are the transoms going to coordinate with the canopies?
I mean, if we want to accent the entrance, we might want to think about pulling off some of the canopies. What do
I
you?
guess is the rendering the most true to what you guys plan to build, or is the elevation from your condocs the one that's most true
So
for us
the-
to look at?
Our process was, I think our designer did the 2D elevations first, and then she did the rendering, so that's probably a little more updated.
Okay.
Um,
So, okay, so you intend to have like those long canopies sort of bridging the two windows, how you have it in the,
Yeah, that was the intention.
okay. So I think then to go back to your comment, Pete, I think one of the comments that the town made, and I'm sure a few of us have made, like that front entrance, if there's a way that we can highlight that a little bit more, because right now it's sort of just,
It's a smaller.
yeah, it has a smaller canopy and sort of falls into the rest of the elevation. You don't really know which is your entrance point.
And I think what you can also enhance it with lighting as well.
lighting, or if, if it's a taller, deeper canopy or something, I think there's ways that you can do that.
Scale wise.
Or a canopy that comes out more horizontally rather than being a slope. That might say entrance rather than shade.
Right.
But how are we addressing the difference between canopy, which is shed type, transom?
Rob, can you use the microphone? Because we are taping.
Yeah, I understand the first point. I don't know if we've addressed it. So there's the transom to heighten the window. Sorry.
That was a suggestion, yes.
Right.
That was suggested to do
But
that.
now we have canopies that would conceal that transom. So I don't know if there's a flat canopy or a non-shed canopy. I'm just trying to bridge the gap there. I know I like the look of the shed canopy.
I'm not sure that the transoms were in the recommendation or just to emphasize.
Stephanie
that-
suggested
right,
as a
So that
resolution.
could be an option.
But I don't know if that, I think going to the point with the cornices also is about making this different from this, which I think, because one is a door and one is a window, I think it's all part of the same conversation as those two towers.
Yeah, I think
May
we'll
wanna have some
revisit the
differentiation.
entrance portion and just make it feel a little more prominent.
Stephanie, is there a way we could use some side lights along that storefront for the main entrance to sort of widen the window as you walk in? I mean, if I see side lights, when I say that, extra panels of glass, I don't know the architectural, how deep that or how wide that hallway is as you enter. Yeah, if we have room there, and I suspect we do, then maybe we widen that. Still have the two operable doors, but you have, windows on each side of that.
Yeah, we definitely.
I mean,
We
it
do
looks
have
like a
spaces
tight
on that.
vestibule, and I think take what we're saying with a grain of salt, right? Like these are our recommendations
Yeah,
for
right,
like
I
when you
get it.
move forward, right?
One of the
And-
problems we have, well, yeah, there are rooms in there, although,
Yeah. And we don't have to have like
okay,
the solution this evening either. I think these are just like,
I
if you
understand.
can kind of highlight the front entrance, that would,
But
Yeah,
some of these comments do improve, I appreciate it.
yeah.
One of the issues we've had in a design challenge that Sylvester, faces here is we're really beholden to a certain amount of common area for the HCR application. That's why you see the hallways the way they are. If you're, 1 foot over that common area, you're not going to get funded. And that might explain some of, the narrowness of that entryway. I do believe maybe some sconces too, on each side of that front entry would make it look like a front entry.
Yep,
And
I think,
a big sign that says entry.
Big like lights pointing.
I think we understand what you're looking for and we'll revisit that area.
Thank you.
So previously, though, I think you mentioned taking the other canopies off of that elevation and doing transoms. I will say the canopies are nice because I think it adds a bit of a residential feel that
I agree.
would not be there if you took them off. But I do think, just looking at that main entrance and maybe it's just a material change or something that you can do to dress up that entrance is going to help draw, that's your focal point. And that's
And a
where-
subtle color change, perhaps, yeah.
Perhaps a
color
subtle
change.
color change, nothing dramatic, but something that differentiates the entrance from the remaining, hundreds of feet of facade there.
The next one with a comment is B6B. Yeah. They asked, are there any other opportunities to reduce energy consumption or create on-site energy such as solar panels or shading of additional south-facing windows? I will say I mean, HCR does require certain things, and one of the things that we do have in this building is a white roof, which will help with the heat island. Our windows are also very energy efficient, so that helps the building.
They score the application based on its energy efficiency.
There's a sustainable
Right.
portion this year that they added.
Right.
Yeah, that we have to.
And
meet.
also our electric condensers are on the roof, which would, when you couple the parapet concealing the condensers on the roof, it's an all-electric building. We did the analysis. There's just not enough room to put the panels on the rooftop. When you consider spacing for maintenance, shading area, condensers, and stacking the condensers in a manner that is efficient. We hired a firm that do that analysis for us.
Any other questions on that one? No.
Can you clarify HCR?
Homes and community renewal, the finance.
Sure. We've applied for a 9% low-income housing tax credit. We submitted that application to the state's agency, and it's scored through a competitive analysis of other projects statewide.
I just wasn't familiar with the acronym, thank you.
Housing and community renewal.
Next one with a comment is C-1A. Open spaces should ideally be centrally located. Consider adding some character defining features to lawn area at southeast of site to promote use by tenants and guests to activate the area and make it more people friendly. Perhaps enlarge the sidewalk to include a seating area.
Hi, Pat Sheedy, Carmina Wood Design, Project Civil Engineer. Yeah, we could definitely take a look at that area to kind of activate it a little more. We do have that one patio area called out, but that is closer to the parking area, closer to the community room. So that back area is more of a quieter area. But yeah, we can definitely take a look at that, enhance some landscaping, maybe some hardscape benches, things like that. So
We have
I
our
think-
bike parking there as well. Our bike racks.
at the patio in the parking lot area. Yeah.
I think one comment that the town had and I also had was that seems like a very small patio area for the number of units that you guys have. So I would very strongly recommend adding some other space for your tenants to like hang out, especially because like it's a parking lot behind them with Premier and there's not access for the site across.
Sure.
Just to kind of add some softness with like a space to hang out.
Yeah, I'd actually like to elaborate on that a little bit, in that the public space is not just for the tenants, but it's for the public. And a good spot for that is along the sidewalk. I mean, you have a residential buffer or you're backed up to a residential neighborhood on the backside. If you're to create a seating area, somebody's walking along, they want to stop and sit there, and it's not necessarily part of your building, but it's part of the neighborhood. And that's the public part of that is about not just for the people there, but for everybody. And then I'd like to actually even go a little further than that, is the connection from this building to the other buildings on the property, up to Premier Center. And if there was some connecting sidewalks, you weren't just even striped areas. So there was a pedestrian path to get you from here to Premier to grab something, or Delta Sonic, or out to the sidewalk in that direction. Those
Yeah,
are the-
that was one of the comments we received from the planning department as well. We're going to be, there is actually an existing crosswalk there kind of near that dumpster area. So we're just going to be reestablishing that and connecting our sidewalk that kind of borders the building and then out to Meyer Road. So there will be a pedestrian connectivity. Yeah, so let me get the,
Okay, and then that would also present additional
Yeah,
opportunities
so
for your
basically,
public area.
we're gonna reestablish this crosswalk here and then add a sidewalk in this landscape island
Okay.
to add connectivity, so you can walk out to Meyer, or you can come back up to the plaza, up to Maple, and
Can you clarify the patio? It shows in a different location there than on the architectural plan. Is it, where
Right.
is it intended?
Yep, so the patio area is defined as here, and then this is the back space here that we'll take a look at to enhance a little more for some more outdoor amenities.
Okay, so there's no patio off of the community room, correct? Is that,
No, the community room is, I think, right in this area here. So they'll come out this door and then go to the pit. We just don't have the physical space with the existing parking we had to meet back here. So that's why we kind of pushed it, down a little bit. But it is relatively close to that community room. Room. I thought we. Yeah. Which one was that? Comment C1G regarding the pedestrian bicycle amenities. Comment was, should a bike rack also be included near the community room entrance? That's not really a main point of access to the building or pedestrian or bike access, really. We have quite a bit of bike parking along the main entrance on Meyer and then the side entrance as well. And the landscape area between the sidewalk and the building face there is a little smaller. So we'd probably only be able to fit maybe one or two at most. But we have substantial bike parking for that, the main entrance fronting Meyer and the west side entrance as well. We already talked about that. Just talked about that. I think we kind of briefly touched on this, but A2B and A2C, just commenting on the location of the amenity space. This is a private development for, the Affordable Senior Housing Project. It's not really intended to be a public park per se or public area. While we do acknowledge that it is connected to the public sidewalk and people may use it, that's not really what the intention of the space is for.
I'm sorry, you're saying that you're not intending to have a public space for the public?
Is that a requirement?
Yes.
The guidelines
Yeah.
encourage that. This is not a large project in one of the centers where they're constructing new roads. One opportunity to enhance public amenity is along the public road, Meyer. Right now, there is a fence.
Mhm.
If that fence wasn't there and there was more activation between that sidewalk and the site, or seating in the landscape area between the parking and Meyer Road, that would go towards that.
Like a bench off.
Okay, I see what, yeah.
That,
Yeah, so-
that would help. That standard is for public amenities is tough to, well, it's not a standard, it's a guideline in here, and there's standards in the zoning in the mixed-use district.
Mhm.
It's hard to apply that when it's a single property, a single building. If they were building something, a large development with new public streets and interconnectivity between multiple parcels and multiple buildings and multiple uses, then it would be easier to require that.
Yeah, and to that effect, that existing fence along Meyer Road, we will be removing that. From a visibility standpoint, it'll enhance the landscaping. So if we are required, we could show, a few benches or something like that along that corridor there to enhance the, I guess, public amenities.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Since we're taking the fence down, we'll have more room.
Yeah. Those would be installed in the public right of way though. So then that would be, I guess,
Maintained by,
the town, I would,
be maintained,
yeah,
so a bench would be maintained by the town because it sits in the right of way?
right, right.
I got to put that back to the highway has to. When you-
Right,
When you
right.
put that on the site plan, we'll send it to highway.
Okay.
We normally don't go that far.
Got it.
Is the fence is being removed, but there's a portion of it that's being rebuilt? Is that the intent? There was a section of it, what's about one, two,
Yeah,
three.
there's
Yeah,
different sections of
so,
fences.
yeah, initially when we submitted the site plan application, we were calling for that fence to remain, but after we had some discussion with the planning department, the fence along the frontage of Meyer will be removed. So
Okay.
that'll be coming off the site plan, yeah.
Okay,
And I apologize, the property line actually is right on that south edge of the sidewalk. So if we did install any sort of bench or anything like that, it actually would be
It's not in the right.
on
of way,
our
yeah.
parcel, just to clarify that.
okay.
Pete, there was a separate review letter done for the site plan submittal,
Okay.
separate from the DAB submittal, where we already asked them to remove the fence.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that was being addressed somewhere.
Okay. Bike ramp.
I think that's all on A.
Shade
That's all
structure
we had
or
on Art.
Guideline A4A, encourage an inclusion of public art. The comment reads, perhaps a shade structure or art element can be added to a patio or lawn area south of the building to make outdoor spaces more comfortable for residents and their guests. I mean, in that back area there, we could certainly put a pergola or incorporate something like that into the, yeah, kind of in this back area here, to make it more of a focal point, I
Especially
guess.
as we're going to most likely gauge that space anyway now.
Right, right, yeah, exactly. So yeah, we could definitely look at something like that to enhance that area, yeah. Okay, comment A6B regarding landscaping. Looks like it's just a clarification on the landscape plan. I'll have to go back and double check all the species tags and things like that, to better
A6B.
clarify that.
Use landscape to reduce heat.
Oh, yep. Yep, looks like that tag is not on there, so we'll have to add that in there. And then, yeah, and then in that back area again, we'll, add some more landscaping in there to enhance that with the, whatever outdoor amenities we kind of lay out there as well. Okay, what is this? Show adjacent residential properties and elevation, proposed building height. So comment A7A regarding the building height. I guess, are you guys just asking for what the height of the building is at the adjacent property at 135 Meyer?
I think I was commenting that obviously the adjacent residential buildings are very short.
Mm-hmm.
You guys did note the height of your building, but it's hard for us to understand what that distance is. You did step down and withhold it from the property line, but there's no section or elevation showing the adjacent property and profile to understand the difference in scale and the distance away. So it's really just an opportunity to clarify what does that
Yeah.
feel like or look like.
Okay. No, I think I understand what you're saying there. Yeah, so we can definitely add, those adjacent buildings on the site plan here. And then we could put together some sort of, schematic kind of elevation difference between the two or height difference between the two. And the distances between them. We can do that. Yeah, I think we're back to building here. So, yeah, I think that was all the comments here. So we already did all these. Yeah, so it looks like that's all the comments that were noted on here. If there's anything else you guys have or questions you have, we're here to answer them for you.
Is there any other comments from the board? Questions?
I do not, no.
I think this has gone through very well, getting an understanding for both sides of what we're looking for. So I hope we move ahead okay with that. Okay, is there anything more that you wish to present formally to us this time?
No, unless you have other questions for us to answer, no, that's our presentation.
I think that all the questions get answered, I think, at this point. Okay, then I think we'll move on to what we call our checklist, which is the design guidelines. We'll start to go through that as a board. And
Would
see
you like
how
to go through those line by line or by group?
I'm going to suggest we start by group, and then if there's a specific line item, we can call it out and cover it rather than if that's okay, Gary?
So if everyone is looking at the checklist in the blurb in the book, starting with A1, which is pedestrian access and connectivity, were there any recommendations based on the presentation? Recommendations to the planning board?
In addition to what we've already stated, or just reiterating?
No,
what
we're
we've-
trying to summarize now what
Okay.
your back and forth comments and answers. We have to turn those into findings or recommendations to the planning board.
Okay, so regarding the internal walkway, we're asking for a connection be made, and you had mentioned you'd be doing this with the stripes, between this building itself and up towards Maple Road. So we're suggesting that an internal walkway be created that does that.
That was a walkway and not just striping.
Yes, well, the walkway, the striping is connecting the walkway. The two are interconnected, they work together.
Did you,
A2 is outdoor amenity space.
Mm-hmm. And we're asking for that to be expanded, have some shade added to those areas. And then the blurb that we have written down is designs should not appear to privatize the space. So based on that, I was encouraging that it be made for public use, in which case we'd be talking about the seating along Meyer Road. Some kind of benches, public space back there.
A3 is bicycle amenities.
No comments.
No?
A4 was public art.
We asked for the inclusion of it. I don't think you're objecting to it, but I don't think we knew exactly what you were thinking of doing for that.
Public art, we talked about potentially putting it in that green area, the green space area. Lower portion to the right, seeing as though we're going to engage that area.
Right.
So I think we're agreeing with your number 1 on your draft.
I'm sorry. I
We agree with
Oh.
number 1 on the draft.
oh, on the draft resolution.
Yep.
A5 is site landscaping.
Comment.
No comments.
A6 is sustainable features.
No comments.
No comment.
A7 is the transitions, which I believe Ann was suggesting a drawing, a section drawing maybe? Some way to,
Streetscape drawing.
Streetscape, so you can better evaluate the context.
is that okay with the board?
Yes.
Wording it that way? B1 is facade.
That's- Talked about the cornice, right? Evaluating how the cornice reads on the building. And the main entrance, would it be incorporated into the same comment?
Can you
So
use your,
I think this is where we talked about the cornice. So each mass type being identified differently from each other.
each mass type being equal to the towers?
Tower,
So we have the tower, the recess, yeah. So the towers, I think we talked about that having some different cornice profile, depth, etc.
To differentiate the
To
cornice.
differentiate,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, but that's B2.
It's
B2 is entryways?
just kind of overlap between the two, because it's part of the facade above and then the actual entrance. So, but yeah, there's definitely looking at the main entrance and evaluating how we can make that pop a little bit.
Bless you.
Where is your transparency, your glass comment? Main entry doors.
Oh. Question on B2A was where I think that they would be agreeable to consider adding vision glass at exit doors to enhance some of that safety if people are using those doors to exit or to come into.
Is that a recommendation?
Yeah, I think so.
B3 is windows.
No comment.
No comments.
B4 is roof lines and architectural details.
The cornice also would apply to this section.
Does the revision of the canopy sort of fit into this? I guess that's the main
Well,
entrance.
the canopy would be the main entrance, I think. There's some overlapping.
Set steps. Canopies, where would they go? And what would the canopy comment be in relation to the entryways or the facades?
We like the canopies, but potentially revising the one at the main entrance.
Consider that part of B4, a general comment, B4 roofs and architectural details.
Yeah, unless, did we already say it with the entrance, entryway comment, B2?
B5 is street level interest.
No comments?
No comments.
B6 is sustainability features.
No comments.
No comment.
And B7 is building materials.
No comments.
No comment.
Actually, I do have one question. We're looking at this building is a shot taken from Meyer, looking back. Does the same material follow all the way around? I mean, to the back? Oh, yeah, okay, you provided those. That's right. No questions, no comments.
Public realm guidelines, C1 is open space.
I think just a comment on C1D, making the sort of open space, amenity space more proportional to the building and site.
C2 is sidewalk.
No comments.
And C3 is curb zone,
Comments?
which this really doesn't have one because they're not building a new road. So your blurb has a draft resolution, which has 4 comments in it to this point. I could read those and then we'll add to those a summary of what you just came up with, if that's all right. The site plan and landscape plan be revised to provide a proposed location and details of public art amenity in accordance with design guideline A4. Number 2 is the sheet A201 exterior elevations be revised to show proposed building lighting. Number 3 is sheet C100 be revised to show safe pedestrian access connecting the proposed multifamily building with the plaza at 3904 Maple Road in accordance with design guidelines A1B and C2C. Number 4, that the existence of the fence along Meyer Road be removed in accordance with design guidelines C-3B, and then add the findings you just gave us.
Yep.
Did, the last one, Gary, did you say this back here? No, I'm sorry. We're okay.
I got ahead of myself. I read you the proposed conditions and modifications, but I didn't let anyone make a motion. Got ahead of us.
Okay,
I'll make a motion for those, to accept them, to
a
propose.
second?
I'll second it.
Yeah.
A second.
Second with Tracy. Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, carries.
We'll get those all written up and
Okay.
sent to Rob.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Thank you, Gary. I think that doing it this way was much better. The way you carried it tonight, I think it worked much better
If you,
personally with your
if you
doing
want
it
us,
correctly.
if you want us to,
From my standpoint, you have to talk to the chairman. I can't, I'm not going to dictate for him, but I think it's a way that it
to go through
works
the
easier and it
checklist.
gives you the information so that you're clear.
And then Rachel and I has, after you look at the resolution, consider a resolution that you had in your blurb, make a motion on the resolution,
Thank you.
Again, thank you.
then Rachel and I have to take your comments, your findings, or your recommendations to the planning board. We would word them the same way we worded the few draft ones in the beginning of in the initial resolution. So it will probably have 10 comments or 10 findings that will be the recommendations to the planning board.
I do like the way that we drew your comments and had them address those before we even got into our checklist. I appreciated that.
Yeah, that was helpful, though I would have liked them to walk through the project a little bit more than just jumping into the comments. I mean, I looked at it on my own, but it would have been helpful to, for them to just walk through.
I warned them, yes, present what you're doing, but don't go through the checklist. Because I thought they would be getting to the checklist before you guys asked your questions. I understand now you saw that as a benefit. Ann and I were talking on the side a bit. They got the majority of the technical comments in advance. So what I'm hearing you're saying is part of their presentation should be to address the written comments they got up to that point. That's helpful?
I
Instead
found
of
that
going through the whole
helpful.
checklist.
Right, I think just an overall presentation of the project, showing the plans, allow them to present their project, but yeah, then just asking them to go through the comments that they received and address those back to us. I think that was helpful.
I'll try to make that happen in the future.
Okay, moving on, has everybody reviewed the schedule for next year's meetings? Is there any questions or potential need for adjustment? Anybody?
I'm good.
It's on the back of this page.
Of course.
Do you have any questions on it? I'll let you read it.
The one thing I noticed is in the design guidelines, it had 7 o'clock. It had 7 o'clock for a start time. Not on here, but just in the general, whenever possible, which we're meeting at 6 o'clock.
In the rules of order, it says 7 o'clock. In here, right, it says 7 o'clock.
Yeah, I think the wording was whenever possible, schedule it around at 7 o'clock. But whenever possible, we do it at 6 o'clock.
You want to keep 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock's, but I didn't know it was anything other than that. I just noticed it said something different than what we're doing. I have no opinion on it, I just noticed it. OCD.
Rachel, am I wrong? The draft calendar that you gave will end up being public?
Yes.
Once the town board adopts it?
Right, this is your requested set of dates for the town board and they'll, their organizational meeting. But
Yeah.
to your point, I think what I hear you saying. Yeah,
What I'm saying is, at the back here, there's a bunch of things, design rules of order. Regular meetings, the DAB should be held on the fourth Thursday of each month at 7 PM.
so as we discussed,
Yeah, we're getting ahead of that,
your
but
packet, we'll talk about those next month as well. My understanding is you want to stay with 6 o'clock. Got it.
Yeah, the rules of order was an inconsistency. Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm glad you pointed it out. So that's something that needs to get fixed. We intend to have it stay at 6 unless you guys wanted to change it, but it sounds like you guys like 6. We also like 6. So yeah, so the calendar would be with the presumption of 6 PM.
Yeah.
Those dates with 6 PM. With December being the meeting that is not the fourth Thursday because that's often when Christmas is. So no one wants to be here that day.
I do.
Okay, so we're all gonna bring presents in for Dan. Just doing nothing for Christmas.
No, you had to bring this small little tree with the one sprig of pines.
Charlie Brown branch.
Exactly.
Do we need to take a motion to approve this?
Yep.
Yep,
Because it
okay,
has to go to
I'll
the town board. So you guys have to approve, deny, modify, et cetera.
take a motion and a second for this.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting schedule for next year.
Motion to second it? Do I have to, a motion to second or just second it? I'll just second it.
Second,
yeah.
yeah.
There's no motion if you're here, if you're not first. Whatever the hell that
Okay,
means.
all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Pose, same sign.
And we'll add 6 o'clock to the schedule.
Yeah.
I always question it every month.
Yeah, so this will go to the town board to reserve this room for all the meetings and to let the town board know that this is the schedule for the DAB.
Okay, move on to the memorandum of the proposed preliminary review procedure. With that, I'll turn it over to Gary to,
Well, I'll be real quick because we don't have the full board here tonight. This is the same materials that I gave to you guys the meeting we didn't hold in, I think, October. So what you have, there's 3 things that we're asking the board to consider. We've talked, if you remember, it's almost 2 years ago now, we talked about and we initiated the preliminary review. We've had several. There's actually a table in your book this month that lays out all the applications you've had and which ones had a preliminary review. I think the idea now is if you want to talk about preliminary review and making that mandatory or not, or leaving it optional, if you decide to make it mandatory, we need to set thresholds, size of projects, something like that, because it does affect the schedule. It adds time to their schedule. It adds a little cost to the applicants. So that's something we should talk about when the whole board meets next. The second thing was the design guidelines. As Dan and I had said, I think a couple months ago when we started talking about this, you've been working with the design guidelines now for about 5 years. 18 or so applications. I don't know the number, that's what sticks in my head. We just went through it essentially twice tonight. Are some of these guidelines old news? Do some need to be revised? Are we missing something? Or are there too many and maybe we could delete some or update some? What we'd ask you to do is take a look at them physically, mark them up, get those back to us. We'll reconcile all the comments and then have the board discuss them. Is there a need to change the guidelines? Maybe they're perfect as they are, but this is a chance after having some miles under our belt to see how it works. And then the third thing to look at in advance of the next meeting, and Pete just found one inconsistency with the time, are the rules of order. We expect the town attorney's office to ask the DAB to adopt rules of order. What you have in front of you is the last draft, which you received and maybe commented at. I don't know how far you got in 2021, but this is the latest draft I found. We'll go through them, or you guys should go through them, come to consensus. We'll get that to the, I guess, Dan, the next step was it would go to the town attorney's office and then eventually adopted. So those three things, if we could talk about, the question for you tonight would be, do we wait until the next time we have an application? So if we took over an hour or about an hour to go through an application, and if we have 2 applications, then do you want to start these discussions, or do you want to hold a meeting and just talk about this back of the house procedural issues? If so, we could say it's in the January meeting with or without an application. As of now, we do not have a new application in January. I believe submittal day for January is next week.
There's also prelim, right?
Yes, and someone could come in with a preliminary. I think if someone comes in with a preliminary, though, that would be a faster review.
Well, it could lead to a lot of discussion. If the petitioner wants to do a lot of back and forth about, what do you think about this? I can see that going a while. So we won't know until like the beginning of the second week of January.
So this group wants to take time and we talk about this subject areas that were petition. Then the preliminary one is off in February. It is what it is. We're compelled to do something based on the planning board schedule.
True.
Right now, we're not sure what that is. So,
Yes.
you guys can kind of tell us what your guidance is with respect to okay.
It's up to them.
What we're saying now, we'd rather do it separately. Take their time. Through it. Separate meeting. At this point, we don't have anything scheduled for no more than a week. Sorry.
I guess the question I have, do you want us to review and like mark this stuff up and send it ahead of that meeting? And then you guys.
It would be,
compile-
I can only suggest that. It would be helpful, I think, if you guys looked at it first and if there was a lot of comments, Rachel and I can reconcile them and you'll have a place to start from. It might make that meeting go faster if you want to take the time outside of a meeting to look at it. But if anyone that gives me comments, we'll share them with everybody. might make it go a little faster.
I think it makes sense for us to send it ahead and you guys kind of compile, but it's the holidays and like, so maybe January isn't realistic for that meeting for us to review whatever is pulled together. I don't know that that makes sense, considering the rest of December and part of January.
Ever met in February? No, I think the very first meeting was February. I don't know if we've met since then. In January. What's the meeting?
It's January 15th. If we had your comments the first week of January, we'd get them pulled together.
I do think it's helpful to have a discussion to generate comments though too. So
That's fair. That's fair.
I think
Yeah.
we get farther when we talk as a group. We should all look it over and have our own notes, but in a conversation, which I don't think should happen in the same night as a review, because review takes an hour. This could take easily an hour or more. I'd rather just sit down separately and go through this after we've had a chance to.
I
get
think
into
I think it makes sense that this is a two-parter thing. One where we discuss, these are the things that we think are, because as you're asking the question, I'm thinking, how much renovation bending are we thinking of here? Are we thinking just a little couple patches here or there, or make sure that we're all on the same page with this, or are we talking about something more substantial? So I think, yes, two meetings, one to discuss it and one to think about it and then move forward with
Yeah.
that. And then as far as comments that would be written and going back to you, I think they might be more questions or areas of things that we might want to discuss.
And we don't necessarily have to do that. If you want to have that first discussion in January, then we don't have to worry about getting stuff done in advance.
I would be in favor
There
of
certainly
that.
isn't a lot of homework to do. I mean, I would ask you to think about the question, should we mandate the preliminary reviews? In this memo I gave you what I came up with was for some thresholds. You may have a totally different idea. You don't have to take mine. But that's not anything to prepare in advance. The thing that would take time to think about in advance would be looking at the design guidelines and looking at the rules of order. Also, these are three separate questions. I'm not sure which should have the priority. Two of these questions are on you. Preliminary reviews mandated or not, and design guidelines, can they be tweaked or not? The rules of order are something you're being asked to address by the attorney's office.
Can I ask the question too, though? If a preliminary review does end up being mandated, doesn't that affect the town law, like the town E-code? Because the reason that this board exists is to address mixed-use zones, right? And so it is written into law that a design advisory board will hear projects that fall under a mixed-use district. Can I'm just asking the question.
I think both. We first
How
started
big of
talking
an
about this summer. Looked at it a little bit. I think both change in the requiring the preliminary and changing the guidelines would end up being an action by the town board. The town board
Right.
adopted.
So I just wanted to set the context. It's a bigger thing than just,
If this board wants to modify the way it operates, affects the rules of order and or law, local law that puts in place, those would have to be amended. Not, something we can deal with. So your meeting in January is on the 22nd.
Oh, what did I say?
it's the 22nd,
Could be the 29th, not sure why it's the 22nd.
the fourth Thursday of the month.
Last Thursday of the month is 29th.
Fourth. It's the fourth Thursday of the month.
That's why we need rules of order.
So, right, so I mean, you could, to Marissa's point, want to get away from the holidays a little bit, give yourself a little more time to work this through. For us, it looks like you've got another Thursday on the 29th, last Thursday. Have to throw that out.
That also actually creates a problem with the calendar. If you guys want to meet on the 25th, is the actual fourth Thursday of January.
22nd.
Oh, I'm looking at December. My bad, never mind.
We all got holiday brain already, guys.
Yeah, it's right there.
Yeah.
It's the 4th.
But if they wanted to
And
change
there's
that
no
one.
reason why, and I know you guys are love this, it's like, felt as though you wanted to have a special meeting, to talk about that stuff, then it's an option.
I say, let's see if there's no applications at the January meeting. I think we start the conversation then and see how far we get and what follow-up steps from there.
Follow up.
Will food be provided?
Excellent
Food?
question.
Will food be provided?
Can I just ask a slightly different question? Can we review some of the submission requirements as part of maybe our conversations? Because I think this has come up a few times now where when the people are presenting, we don't have the context. Like you asked like them to do a streetscape elevation, but I think if we ask the folks to, I don't know, submit photos or something to give us some level of context of the surrounding area, that would help me understand how this fits in.
That could be part of our conversation on the border. Would that be in the border?
Or is it
Let
part of
us
site
look
plan
at-
submission?
Well, right now it's part of site plan submission. It's the site plan that says what you have to give. I need to read more
Okay.
to decide where we say what's required.
Do is go on the street, just make sure that you've got textual images. Not quite the same.
I don't know where it is. It might be beginning of the application.
Here, you have something?
I like it being included as part of their submission because it talks, like that speaks directly to like the guidelines of like the elevation. Like I want them to actually think about.
It forces them to think, yeah.
Cause they,
Yeah.
'cause I don't think they really thought about that.
Don't.
I want to sort of force them to
It's an interesting concept.
consider it. It is.
But two, I think what we can do is in the slide deck, kind of incorporate like a street view or broader view in here.
If the planning board were to put into its site plan submissions, the elevations of the building must continue out another 100 feet past the edge of the property line and show any adjacent buildings in profile or elevation. That would then give you the context you're looking for. If there's nothing for another 100, and I know I'm saying 100 feet, it's arbitrary, you guys can decide, but a lot of applicants, they only draw the elevation of their building and they stop at the edge of the property line or where their building stops. And if the whole point of this requirement is to look at context and look at adjacent properties, those can be drawn in elevation, or like you said, there should be maybe photos of, we have had some applicants give us photos and that's helpful. It's also helpful maybe to see those things in profile of an elevation and just make the scale a little bit smaller if you have to add that next building in. But when you see a building that's 100 feet tall and it's right next to a building that's only 25 feet tall, you don't get that when they crop the edge of their elevation.
Right, and sometimes I know we've questioned what's directly across the street as
Mhm.
well, so maybe like a Google Earth or, something
Yeah.
to see the
Mhm.
whole,
Neighbor.
both sides and across the street to
Mhm.
kind of,
I will
How
look
does this
at
fit
the
in?
application instructions, to
Mhm.
see what the minimum requirements are.
Site plan,
Yes,
that's where, to Ann's point, that's where
we really don't have separate instructions for the DAB because the DAB application is a sub-part of the site plan application, which is part of the confusion that Pat had. He had my site plan review letter, which doesn't look at the DAB guidelines at all. It was just so.
maybe we should provide a copy of the site plan application to the board so they can look at it, see if they have any other suggestions as to how to embellish that a little bit for their purposes. And that information comes with the application.
I think we did that when this first started, didn't it? Look at like what ended up had it, like what we needed packet or something.
we probably did, we had to create the DAB application based off of something, so that sounds familiar. We probably gave you guys
back in 2020, here's what the site plan look looks like. We want to build the DAB one based off of it for consistency and things like that. So you probably did. And as Dan said,
If you
it'd
haven't
be
seen
good
it
to see
lately, like,
It'd be helpful to
again, this is
revisit
the
it,
retrospect, let's take a look at everything and see what there's something.
As we were saying, look at the context, the broader context of the project you guys are looking at by looking at the site plan.
Okay, so the plan is if there's no application for January, we meet to talk.
Either way, you're going to have a January meeting.
Yes.
Right now, it's scheduled for 22nd,
Yes.
according to this.
Yeah.
So
It's 6 o'clock.
At
That's the 4th.
it's not for.
Okay.
It is the fourth.
It is the fourth.
Yes. I'll double check the planning board calendar. I think it won't, Dan, because the planning board is the 3rd. Well, I guess there is a chance that you could have a,
We'll look at it.
Yeah.
Right now, it's the 22nd. So run with that. If there's a change or if there's a potential for a change. Guessing the planning board meeting would be on the 19th.
The 19th is a holiday, though.
February.
Oh, February. Sorry.
Planning board meetings.
Oh, yeah, I was.
Yeah, 9th planning board and 26th for that.
I think part of this, Marissa hit right on the head. We started out to do a design review. Design review more than the site, it's the surrounding area. And we sort of had, and our focus over time is, in my opinion, has come back smaller and smaller and smaller. And it's just, how do you like the design of the building? It has nothing to do with where it sits on the site or anything else anymore. And I think we're really asking, we need to go back to original concept. How does this project affect the neighborhood?
Yeah, I think you really touched on that.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Yeah,
I'll then
but it
credit
was,
back to Ann for putting it in your comments, you know, what is it contextual, what is it related to? Not itself, but.
so, maybe we can get back to the original concept.
and that's why we should have the whole board here to talk about it, or we'll end up repeating when John's with us. But I'm making a note of that, Duncan.
It's ready, okay.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, is there a second? That's second by Tracy. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.